my favorite.
Quick, tell me something awful. People need a key to get to. The only one is mine.
Wow, okay. That song is the perfect way to go into this video. It makes me so emotional, and two of the books I'm going to be talking about in this video are why it makes me emotional. Hey guys, welcome to or welcome back to my channel. As you guys know from the title, today we're going to be talking about my top 10 favorite books of 2024 so far. Now, so far this year, I have read a total of an amount of books that I don't know, so hold on. I have read a total of 43 books, and my goal for 2024 is 75. I'm currently a few books behind, but I am slowly but surely catching up. So we are gonna just talk about some of my favorite books this year, and I am hopefully gonna convince you to read every single one of them because these books have changed me and altered my brain chemistry in some kind of way or another. So these are not gonna be in any particular order. I'm literally just going to grab one from the stack and talk about it. So these are not in order from least to greatest or anything like that. Like, this is completely random and we're just going to talk about it. And the first two books we're going to talk about are books in a series, and we're going to start with them because of the fact that that song at the beginning of this video made me very emotional, and a lot of songs make me very emotional because of this series, and that is the ACOTAR series. And the two books in particular that I am going to talk about for this video is A Court of Wings and Ruin and A Court of Frost and Starlight. I read the first two in this series last year, so those can't be included in this video, otherwise they definitely would be. But I did read A Court of Wings and Ruin literally as my first book of 2024, and I read this just a couple months ago, and this series means so much to me. I think about this series all the time. I think about these characters all the time, and one thing that causes me to think about them all the time is music. I hear these characters, I feel these characters, I remember things that happen to these characters when I hear songs. There is so many Taylor Swift songs that I heavily correlate to these books, and specifically to Feyre and Rhysand. And I Hate It Here is a song that I, for some reason, heavily relate to Feyre, and I love her so much, and that might be the youngest sister in me relating to the baby of the family, but I love her so much. I love who she is. I love who she becomes. I love everything about her, like, genuinely. Some people do not agree with that, and that's totally fine, but I love her. And these books, like, first of all, this one is so emotional. There is so much that happens in this. This is the third in the series. This book is long as crap, and it's so emotional. There's things in this book that happen that I wasn't expecting for that to be something that made me cry, but I cried nonetheless. I can't even fathom the mind of Sarah J. Maas and how she writes these things and how she comes up with these things, and I can't also thank her enough for bringing me characters that I love so deeply. Okay, if you are new here, then you don't know this, but I'm genuinely just an emotional person in general. I cry all the freaking time over literally everything. I cry at so many books, whatever, but like, genuinely, like, there is only two series that I've ever read that when speaking about the series, I literally start tearing up and I start crying, and that is the ACOTAR series and the Eden series. Those two series have just completely altered who I am as a person and have become some very comforting things to me. So yeah, these are two of my favorite books this year. This one, for the fact of, even though it's short, it's a novella, but this takes place basically during Christmas, which for them is winter solstice, and you're in the POV of multiple different of our main characters, and you're just spending Christmas with them, and the vibes were amazing. And this is one of the only books that I can say reading it brought me nothing but endless amounts of joy. I read this and I was so happy. I was so happy to just be in a happy place with these characters and to be spending this short book with these characters. Like, this book genuinely brought me so much joy, and this series in general, I can't say it enough. I'm gonna stop repeating myself, but if you haven't read this series yet before, I highly recommend. The first 50% of the first book is kind of rough to get through. It's a lot of world building. It feels really slow, but once you get to that 50-60% mark, it picks up so fast, and I promise you, I'm not lying when I say that the next books to come just get better and better, and you need to just push through the first one, and it's smooth sailing from there, I promise. So those were the first two books, and the next book is actually a memoir, and that is Talking as Fast as I Can by Lauren Graham. I just realized I didn't think I had a physical copy, but I actually do. I'm not gonna go grab it, but I do have it, but I actually ended up listening to this. I loved listening to this so much. She narrates it herself, and for those of you who don't know, Lauren Graham is who plays Lorelai in Gilmore Girls, and Gilmore Girls, wow, I'm having a very emotional day today. I don't know what's going on. Anyways, Gilmore Girls is my favorite show I have ever watched. It is something that I quite literally watch or listen to every single day. Those characters have literally basically raised me because I watched that show for the first time in ninth grade, whatever. I mean, it's a show that I literally am like currently forcing both of my sisters to watch with me. Not literally forcing, they're enjoying it, and it's a show that I made Makai watch with me, and he ended up actually like loving it. So it is a show that means so much to me. So listening to her memoir, which specifically is talking about her life before Gilmore Girls and her working to become an actress and how she kind of comes into the role of being Lorelai, and then talking a lot about her time on the show Gilmore Girls and working on A Year in the Life, was literally amazing. I cried so many times listening to her read me this memoir because, again, she just has done something that means so much to me as a human being. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why I'm so emotional today. This is weird. Anyways, that's the next book. I literally loved it. And I don't think I said this, but let me just preface, all three of the books I've talked about so far are 5 stars. Not all of the books in this video are gonna be 5 stars, but those 3 in particular were. And the next book that is in this list is actually Heartless by Elsie Silver. And when I tell you, this was the biggest shock to me ever, because I read Flawless, the first in the Chestnut Spring series, and I actually didn't really like it. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was good, but I felt like the connection felt purely physical based, and I didn't feel the emotional connection between our characters at all, and I really didn't like it. So when I randomly had the urge at the beginning of the year to read this, I almost didn't, but my gut was screaming at me to read it, so I ended up picking it up and I binged it in literally 2 nights. I loved it so much. This would have been a 5 star had there not been one specific scene that knocked it down to a 4.75 for me, just because I do feel very strongly about things regarding that situation. But aside from that, this was so good. I loved the romance in this, and I do still frequently think about our couple in this, Cade and Willa. First of all, this is a single dad trope, and I love single parent tropes. Some of my favorite romance books have been single parent tropes because I love reading books about someone who has either lost their significant other, or it just didn't work out, or whatever the case may be. Watching that person find someone who is going to love them the way they deserve to be loved, but also love their kid the way that their kid deserves to be loved, and kind of step into that role of being like a stepmom in the best, most supportive, most loving way possible, is something that really like just melts my heart. I have a 2-year-old and I'm not a single parent, but I just always find a way to strongly resonate with parent characters in books, especially mothers, because I know what it's like firsthand being a mom and going through these struggles of raising a child. Okay, whatever. So I loved this. Willa's relationship with Cade was amazing and impeccable, and I loved every second of it. But Willa's relationship with Luke is literally the most heartwarming and sweetest thing ever. Not only is this a single parent trope, but she's also the nanny, so there's a little bit of that in there. Throws a little sprinkle in of spice. I don't know. It was so good. I highly recommend. I have since reading this read the 3rd in the series. I still need to read Reckless and Hopeless, but I now highly recommend the Chestnut Spring series. I feel like I probably maybe would have loved Flawless if I read it at a different time and was able to feel that emotional connection between the 2 of them, but I highly recommend the series. I literally love a good cowboy romance thanks to this book for actually getting me to love a good cowboy romance. So that's the next one. And next we have The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This was also a shock to be on this list before I ended up reading it, because although I did love the first in the series, The Inheritance Games, I was not expecting to read the second one and be like, oh my god, this is a 5-star read, and be so thoroughly obsessed. That's exactly what happened. This is one of my most heavily annotated books. At the time of annotating this, I did not have any tabs, which is very honestly unfortunate, but if you were to just sit here and go like this, I annotated the actual living crap out of this. I loved this, obviously, or I wouldn't be talking about it, but her writing is so good. Her writing is so captivating. The way she formulates not only her stories and the plotline, but also her characters, and the way she writes her characters to where you start to have a actual deep connection with them, and a connection with the fact that characters have connections with other people, if that makes sense. She's just so good at it, and this was so good. I love the subplot of romance in this series so much. much. It's so good. But I love our main character, Avery, so much. She's literally probably like one of my favorite female characters in a book, like top 10 female characters that I've read in a book. I don't know what it is. I just love her. And something about this book was so unbelievably good that when I was reading it, I was laughing, I was crying, I was kicking my feet. I was literally like completely floored, jaw on ground. Like, this was so good. I can't recommend the series enough. And I have now, since reading this, I haven't read the Final Gambit yet, but I have read the first in the Natural series. And oh my God, I can say it's not just this series, it's her writing. Her writing is amazing. And if you haven't read anything by her yet, I would highly recommend. And I don't care which series you start with, just read one of them because her writing is amazing. So this was a 5-star. Next book is actually another book that I actually listened to. How many times do I have to say actually? Actually. Oh my God, that was so cringy. I can't, I'm sorry. Anyways, this is actually a book I listened to the audiobook form, and I listened to it because I was trying to get some books off my physical TBR and it was free on Audible, and I was like, that's perfect. And that is The Stand-In by Lily Chu. This is a romance book that, regardless of the fact that I listened to it, I have not been able to forget about, and I literally listened to this in like February or March. Like, I cannot stop thinking about this book and the couple in this book. I loved the writing of this entire book. Every little piece of plot, of personality, everything that Lily Chu put in this book was done so impeccably to me. I don't know if that's the right way to word that, but anyways, I love this so much. The romance in this was so freaking amazing. I actually cannot, like, I want to reread this. I want to re-listen to it or actually read it myself. Not only that, but she has a new audiobook that just came out the beginning of this month and I can't wait to listen to it. I have listened to 2 more of her books after this one because I'm obsessed with her writing. Another thing that I just loved about this was our main female character in this book is mixed, and so she really touches on difficulties and things that people who are mixed go through in their day-to-day lives, and how people of each of the groups that they are a part of will think they're not enough of it or they're too much of the other or whatever it is. And that was really interesting to read, especially because I do have a mixed child, so that's not something I'm gonna go through, but it is something that my child will unfortunately have to go through because the world is the way that the world is. This book was so good. Like, what am I saying? I cannot hype this up enough. I can't explain enough how much I love this and how much I would recommend this, and just recommend her books in general because I have loved every single one I have listened to. And I also love the narrator of her books so much. So it's just a great time. And if you have Audible, they are all free on Audible. So I would highly recommend listening to them if you want. Pick up the physical copy and read it. I don't care how you do it, but you should really read them because they're really freaking good. And this was also a 5-star. So I still think about this so freaking much. And the next book I'm going to talk about, I actually don't currently have the physical copy because I lent it to my sister to borrow because I read this book literally in a 24-hour readathon. That will be the video up after this, so get excited. And I just knew she needed to read it, so I literally was like, here, take it, read it, it's so good, you're gonna love it. And that is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This book completely exceeded my expectations. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't what I was expecting, and it also was so much better than I was expecting. I cannot even begin to explain how many times I have heard people say that the Caraval trilogy isn't that great, but the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy is amazing. It's where it's at. Honestly, just skip Caraval if you don't want to read it and just go straight to Once Upon a Broken Heart. But I am someone that loves to read books in chronological order, especially if it is like a fantasy type series. And so I would have really kicked myself if I ended up loving the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy and then ended up wanting to go back and read Caraval, but I would not have been able to get myself to go back and read it because I would have already known things that happened in those books from skipping ahead. So I ended up just making an executive decision for myself that I would read the Caraval trilogy first. So I ended up picking up the first 2, and then Bestie Paige picked for Caraval to be on my August TBR. So when I was filming this 24-hour readathon, I was really in the mood for like a fantasy type book, and since she had put that on my TBR for the month, I was like, what better way to get a book off of my TBR that someone literally picked for me than just read that one when I'm in the mood for a fantasy anyways. And I can't even begin to describe like how happy I am that I read it, how happy I am that she picked it for me. And I think if I would have read it at any other time, it would not have hit the way that it hit for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was not expecting expecting this book to take the turns that it did. I was not expecting any of the plot points in this book to have happened. Like, I knew very little about this going into it, but one thing I thought I knew was I thought it was a carnival. It's definitely not. I don't know how to explain what it is, but let me just tell you, it's amazing, okay? I also did not know that there was a subplot of a romance going into this book, and I was eating it up. I loved it so much. It was so freaking good. I literally fell in love with these characters so much throughout reading this book, and I finished it and was like, oh my god, I'm gonna need to read Legendary as soon as freaking possible because I cannot wait to continue this series. This ends on a pretty big cliffhanger, if I do say so myself, and I'm so excited to read more, learn more about this world, and learn more about our main characters, and it was just so good, and I loved it so much. I would highly recommend. When I first finished it, I thought I was gonna give it a 4 out of 5 stars, but now, days later, I cannot stop thinking about it to the point where I am bumping it up to a 4.75. Was not quite 5 stars, but I do think that the next books in the series have the potential to be a 5-star because I already love the universe so much. So that is the next book, and the next 2 books I am going to talk about are the first 2 in a trilogy. The third one is not out yet, and I actually filmed an entire reading vlog surrounding around these books, and one of the books, the first one in the series, I ended up rereading this year. I read for the first time last year, and upon the second one coming out on May 30th, I ended up doing a full reread and full annotation of the first book before reading the second one. And if you are not new here, you know what I'm talking about, and if you are new here, I'm about to tell you, and that is Heavy is the Crown and Deadly is the Throne by Lindsay J. Now, Miss Lindsay J was so kind, and after I posted that video, sent me a DM and literally sent me 2 hardcover copies of the books. And I know this is like so obvious, but they are signed, and I can't even begin to explain how much that meant to me, her sending me these and then being signed, because these books have changed my life. I know that's so dramatic. I feel so dramatic saying that, but genuinely it has, because Heavy is the Crown is the first ever fantasy book I read. I could not get into any fantasy books before I picked this up, and then I read this and it completely changed the way I read. It completely changed how I rated books, and it also changed the fact that I now wanted to read fantasy. Her writing had me captivated from the literal first sentence of this book, and I got so deeply attached to our main characters when I read this for the first time. So going into a reread this year, I had some concerns that I wasn't going to love it as much as the first time because it was the first fantasy book I had ever read and it was nostalgic, but I've now read things like ACOTAR, and I was kind of concerned that it wasn't gonna hold up to what I thought it was when I first read it, and I'm so happy to say that it actually exceeded how I felt about it the first time I read it, and going into a reread, I ended up falling even more in love with our main characters and falling even more in love with the universe. This is a medieval fantasy also, so if that's your kind of vibe, I feel like you would love this. It's so fast paced, and oh my god, like the found family in this, and there's like little tiny baby crumbs of romance. It's not a lot, so don't go into this thinking you're gonna get romance because you're really not, but it's so good. And then going into Deadly is the Throne, this one ends on a huge cliffhanger, so going into this I was very scared for what I was getting myself into, and obviously you're scared that the second in a series that you now beloved from the first book is not gonna hold up to what the first book was, because sometimes that unfortunately happens, but that did not happen in this case. I actually ended up loving this so much. I actually cannot pick which one is a favorite. I love them both equally, and I think that's so rare for me personally when I'm reading a series that is a continuation of a story like ACOTAR or the Inheritance games. I always feel like I have a favorite, especially when I get to the second one. I feel like I always love the second more than the first, but that did not happen here. I loved them equally, and I can't even begin to explain how much I love these, how much these books mean to me. These are 2 books that I will forever recommend. These are 2 books that I quite literally always recommend to you guys. If someone comes into my DMs asking for a book rec, 9 out of 10 times I'm telling you guys to read these because I love them so much. They are so good. These deserve so much more hype. I feel like nobody talks about these, nobody reads these, and they need to be talked about. They need to be read because they're so good. I just love them. I love the world. I love our characters. Everything about it I love. There's not a single part of these books that I do not love. So those are the next 2 books, and they are also both 5-6-star reads. Like, some of my favorite books I have ever read in my entire life are these 2 bad boys right here. And the last last book we are going to be talking about in this video is one of my most recent 5-star reads, and this was also in my reading vlog of me catching up on my Goodreads goal, and that is A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston. This was my book club book for the month of July with my book club on Discord. The link is always down below. It half the time does not work, and I don't know why, because I try to fix it every single time I upload a video and it never works, so I do not understand what's going on. If you want the link and it doesn't work, comment down below, shoot me a DM, whatever. If it might take me a couple days to get back to you because I'm really bad at answering DMs, but I always do eventually, and I will always send you a new link. But anyways, I loved this so much. I was so nervous going into this book because of the fact that I had seen a lot of people saying that this didn't live up to what they thought it was going to, and that it just wasn't as good as like The 7-Year Slip or The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston, and they were just disappointed. So I was very nervous going into this that I was also going to be disappointed and that it wasn't going to hold up to my expectations for it. But boy, oh boy, was I proven wrong, and I'm so thankful that I was. I actually ended up loving this more than I loved The 7-Year Slip, which is really saying something because I loved The 7-Year Slip so much. But something about this book just did it for me. The plot line of this book is so fun. It is something that I think all of us readers probably dream about happening, and that is somehow ending up in our favorite fictional town. Reading this book, all I could picture was like imagining that I somehow ended up in Quincy, Montana. And that was just like a crazy feeling. This book just brought me so much joy in the sense of like imagining that I'm her and I'm actually in Quincy, Montana, not where she's at, and I'm actually talking to Knox in Memphis and all of these characters that I've grown to love rather than her talking to the characters she's grown to love. And it was so fun. Like the plot line of this was so good, and I literally loved it. And the romance in this I loved. I know some people didn't, but I personally loved it. I think the romance in this definitely was a slow burn, but I'm honestly someone that loves a slow burn, and I loved how this was done. I have heard some people say that why they didn't love the romance is because they felt like they didn't know very much about our main male character, and I can't say they're wrong, but I personally, that didn't bug me because that felt very intentional, and it was very intentional because of what his story is and everything. Like, I don't even know. I don't even know. Just know, like, this was so good, and I will recommend it forever. It is amazing. I'm actually obsessed with it. Again, I love the plotline so much, but our romance was amazing. Elsie and Anders will forever live in my heart. I think about this book still so frequently since finishing it, and I also literally the day after I finished this went to sleep and I had a dream that this situation happened to me. So like clearly this book hit for me. Like I just loved it so much. It was so good. So that is my most recent 5-star read. 6-star read, loved it. Can't even begin to describe how much I loved it. So with that being said, that is all the books that I'm going to be talking about in this video. I hope that I have convinced you to read some of these, and I hope that you love them just as much. I hope if you've read any of these, you also love them, and if you didn't, that's okay, because one of the amazing things about reading is the fact that we all have our own very unique opinions, and just because it's the same words on a page in my copy of A Court of Frost and Starlight as your copy doesn't mean we are going to feel the same way about those words, interpret them the same, and I think that is just so fun and so cool. So those are my top 10 favorite books of the year. Feel free to let me know down below what your top 5 or top 10 favorite books of the year are. I would love to get some more book recommendations, so feel free to let me know down below. But that is all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you are not already, because we have a lot of fun over here and we want you to join the fun. And with that being said, I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Peace. Oh my god, why would you do that? Oh my god, but you didn't have to do that. I'm literally gonna cry. You just scared me so. Could you have been like, okay, I'm coming in? Like, you have to warn me. Oh my god. Why did you do that to me?
Did you not see the door?
No, I wasn't looking at the door. I was looking at the camera.
Hi, Mama.
Hi, baby. You say hi, guys.
Okay.
Look, right there. Say hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
You're headless. Nearly headless Mackay.
We take 1800s photographs. No smiling.
Hold on, I feel like I need to take it off. Ew, what was that? Not only what was that statement, but what was that laugh? I am just like in a very calm mood right now, and I'm not feeling like filming is gonna go great right now. So we need a song. We'll listen to this one about my so these are not in order from least to worst, or wait, What? If you are not new here, then okay. Whoa, that I was talking about, oh my god. I loved the subplot, whoa. One of my, whoa, her writings, her incredible, oh my god. What actually just happened to me right there? Wow. I was not expecting, and then the next two books are books, whoa, what? And then the next two, whoa. And then the next, oh my god. Now, oh my god. Why was that so hard for me to say? I actually don't know. I think the slow burn in this was such a, whoa, what did I just say? Huh. I would love to get some more, whoa. So feel free to let me know, whoa.